You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. And today we've got a number of topics. If you're just joining us, we talked about this unfortunate death and lawsuit that took place with children who drowned in a lake, and the association being responsible for that. We'd love to know what you think about that topic. We also have one that we're going to be talking here next, and that is about the state of Florida already getting ready to dump the office of the condominium ombudsman only 6 years into its creation.
Remember our phone number. Call us 651-289-4488.
And before we get into that story, though, Tony, I just would like to remind our listeners here in the first hour, we have a free subscription, a bi-monthly newsletter that we would love to give you. It's a great resource. We have topics that we cover in further detail than just what we do here on the radio show, and it's yours free for the asking. Give us a call during the week at 952-922-2500. Ask for Courtney, and she'll make sure that you start receiving that newsletter. Well, let's get going in our next story here, and that is, should Florida dump the office of the condominium ombudsman? It says that there is a new Florida bill that proposes to do away with more government services, including the closure of the office of the condominium ombudsman. And in this article, the person writing this news piece says, does it make sense? He didn't think so. But I think people in Florida are really torn whether or not this was a very effective office
in the first place.
Yeah.
And they're starting to look at where they're spending their tax money and considering that perhaps this is not the most effective way to spend their money.
So it's not that it's not a good thing, but sometimes when you're dealing with budget constraints, you got to take a look at where is the money going to be spent the best.
That's right. And this office had pretty lofty mission statement, didn't it?
Oh yeah, they did. It they said here, it said the mission of the statement of the office of the condominium ombudsman, it is the mission to improve the quality of life for Florida condominium owners. That's a big job. That's a big bill to fill. Yes, it is. And, one of the things that came to my mind right away is I can see why they may say, this may be a little ineffective because how can you do that? I mean, how can any one government entity say, I know what quality of life means for you,
For homeowner association members.
Yes, and then the promise of a quality of life. As far as I can remember, our Constitution promises life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not the guarantee of happiness.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so I think, you're right. Lofty goals was something that...
and perhaps not only lofty, perhaps unreachable.
Yeah.
Some of these.
Now, you said that we have a couple comments from people from Florida on what they thought about it.
On both sides of this argument. Here's a comment from Jack. He says, it's time for adults to read what they sign. When you go to closing and you don't read, that's not my problem, it's yours for being dumb enough to buy property without an inspector and without a lawyer. But no, let's force everyone else and make them pay for my stupidity as a home buyer.
Do you think he's in a homeowners association?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe
I don't
not.
know. He's just, I think he is. He's just saying, you know what? Okay. I read my documents and I was responsible. He calls Florida the nanny state. And he thinks this agency is a mess. They've done nothing for HOAs except suck up tax money for the nanny state. When does America intend to stand up? He says. So he's again it. He's again that ombudsman office.
I got that. Yes.
Yeah. And then there's another statement on the other side of the argument. This person says, sure, Drop all the oversight by the state on private business. We don't need food inspections. Barbers should be allowed to use dirty implements without interference by the state. Nursing homes should be run as their owners please. Electricians and plumbers remain unlicensed. Any citizen can judge restaurant cleanliness for himself. No inspectors needed to look in the kitchen. And why have those pesky building code inspectors? He's saying this sarcastically, right? Yeah. Contractors are easily able to build safe buildings without anyone enforcing community standards.
Now, what do you think of that person's comments? I mean, they're saying, there are people that are involved with restaurants, and that's true. Yeah. And also health inspectors for barbershops, stylists, and things like that. Do you think it applies to HOAs?
There's the crux of the matter, isn't it? What items do we need to protect our citizens from or about, and what issues should remain up to the citizens to decide?
See, I would think that I agree with that second writer that you do need to have. That's a reason for a state to intervene on certain commerce because they're providing a service, and in this case, with a restaurant, something that a person doesn't know what they're getting or how it's being prepared. So because of that, there is a responsibility. I would say that a HOA, again, would be a different animal altogether because here you're talking about individuals who voluntarily come together in a contract.
Okay, sure.
And so I think they have a right to be able to set things the way that they would like, and I don't. And just because you get a couple of people in a minority situation that doesn't like what the majority of the homeowners are saying, I don't know that you need another state ombudsman office and another entity to come in to interact between that, because that's something that that's just a part of life as adults.
Right, and that was one of the part of the mission of this ombudsman's office was to get involved between the association and individual owners to help resolve disputes, to help ensure elections were run properly. Another mission they had, though, was to help educate people, to help provide educative materials. And that I like that goal. I think the more information we have, but is it worth my tax dollars to pay for a government office to do that?
Exactly. What had taken place there, if I'm not mistaken, when Florida started the office of the condominium ombudsman, what they did then is they turned to every homeowner in the state living in an HOA and said, we are going to tax you additionally for the purpose of this office. Part of what I have an issue with when it comes to taxation a lot of times is it always starts out with, well, this is why we need these additional taxes. And so the state readily collects that, and so they find people willing to say, okay, we'll go in, we'll give you some more tax. But after a while, that money doesn't go just for that organization. It goes into the general fund, and I think that's part of what is happening here. Part of the issue, and this would be interesting to hear if there was someone from Florida that could call us and let us know, but I bet you if they decide to go do away with the office of the ombudsman, I don't know that there's necessarily a tax that's going to be taken away from folks.
You don't think there's going to be a tax break?
I mean, how many times does that happen? Yeah. I mean, we had that has gone with the money when you talk about the great litigation that took place because of smoking here in the state. That was supposed to be used just for certain things. Well, that's not the case anymore.
Now it's in the general fund.
That's being used for other things. Same thing with money when we're being taxed something special for gasoline. It doesn't go just for transportation and roads. After a while, it goes to other things. And so, I could see where people would be upset. Here they have some additional taxation, and now looking at doing away with it, you would think that in the very least those taxes should go away. But it'd be interesting to find out if they would or not. And the other thing too, I could see why the state is saying maybe we don't need the ombudsman office. You said that one of the things they wanted to provide was education and resource. Well, we know that there are a lot of great organizations that provide education and resource, and a lot of times at no cost.
Yes.
You've got groups like CAI, Community
right.
Associations Institute.
Right. Which is the one group that everybody, all the malcontents love to malign, is CAI. And they talk about it like it's some evil empire.
Oh, we talked about that. All of the crazies that we've had, that have had some really specific legislation that they've wanted to put forward.
To curtail the rights of homeowner associations and their members.
They can't, as you said, just have an intelligent conversation on ideas, but it has to go to maligning that organization.
Well, and they love to make this argument that there's some kind of conspiracy going on between CAI, which is a professional organization that supports board members and helps educate members of homeowner associations about where they live and how it's governed.
Yes.
Correct? And they always accuse CAI and property management companies, and sometimes they throw in the board of directors as being in collusion to harm. And
attorneys are always in there,
attorneys
too.
thrown in there too. That the whole point is to harm individual members of a homeowners association. And it's such a paranoid delusion that it's difficult to listen to.
Yeah. But when you have other organizations giving great resource and education and information, it makes you realize maybe the state doesn't need to recreate the wheel. Something else is already there. And the marketplace, and this is what's so interesting, generally speaking, the marketplace, when it is free, is allowed to be able to create what is needed.
That's right. And CAI is not a government entity. It's not paid for by our tax dollars. It's paid for by the people who wish to use their services, right?
Yeah, and that goes along with, besides CAI, there's IREM, the Institute of Real Estate Management, multi-housing.
Here in Minnesota, we've got this fabulous organization called the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, and they also offer education to CICs.
Yeah, and like you said, the last thing here is that beside having these lofty goals, and maybe other organizations already there to supply what they were trying to do. Then you also had an inability for them to perform the duties that they needed to do. One of the ones I wanted to bring up, I think you just did a little bit ago, was that the Ombudsman Office purpose was to monitor disputes of elections in homeowner associations.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, are you serious? I mean, stop and think about all of the condominiums, all of the townhome associations in the state of Florida. And now you have 2 offices and maybe 20. I'll give them maybe 40 employees max.
I'm not sure they have that many.
I don't even think they do.
No.
And now they're going to know at any given time what's taking place and monitor the election of homeowner associations.
Isn't that what we have the UN for? Why do we need the redundancy?
Yes, the redundancy all over again. Well, yeah, I just think that it is probably. I think it's good that folks in Florida are coming to the realization that maybe the organization can't perform the way that they had hoped. And when that is the case, it should be looked at and it should be dissolved. There's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, we kind of feel that anytime we create something in government, it's got to stay forever, and that's not necessarily the case. But we'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think it's a good thing to have an office of the ombudsman for homeowner associations? We'd love to hear from you on that. And I tell you what, we're going to take maybe another break here. And when we come back, we can talk about that if you'd like. Or let's start talking about what's happening at our own Minnesota State Legislature. I think you'll be surprised when you hear some of the things that are being proposed this year. You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony on AM 1280 The Patriot. We'll be back after this.